Hey everybody, we're back with Teach a Kid to Read. Teach a Kid to Read. I'm Tony. You've seen me before, but that is Mary Cantwell. We are so excited to have her on the show. Mary and I met about a month ago when I was in New York. She's from New York, and a lovely New Yorker. And we met at the Justice Film Festival, where we got a chance to connect and talk about literacy. She came and she's one of the big supporters and voices behind Sentence. So we're super excited about that and the film. But more than anything, I'm so excited to have you here. Mary's been in the literacy space for decades. She's used to be, I think, at the London-based Garden House School of New York. And you've worked for New York Public Schools as an education and literacy specialist. And now you are the co-founder of EnrichedNYC, a literacy organization that works around New York and nationwide. Mary, welcome to Teach a Kid to Read.
Thank you, Tony. Chris, what an introduction. Wow.
Well, I've been
thrilled to be here.
Since the first moment you and I met in the lobby of the theater, I've been like, I can't wait for all my friends to hear from you, because you are such an inspiring and an effervescent human being. And I really mean that. So,
Tony, thank you. Sincerely, I'm humbled by that, and just really excited that you are giving me this platform to talk about my experiences around really the illiteracy crisis we are currently experiencing in our country. So thank you for your work in this space as well.
You're very sweet. Yesterday, the day before, you were in East Harlem.
Yes. Tuesday is one of my favorite days of the week because I get to work with all my littles up in East Harlem at PS7. We are currently working with 40 kindergartners, first graders, second graders through the I Have a Dream Foundation. And we work with them after school on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays on all things literacy and phonics and fine-tuning those skills, and they are doing beautifully.
Really? Do you get hands-on in the midst of it, or are you stuck being an administrator?
Yes, absolutely. No, it is literally my pleasure to go there every Tuesday, and I do a one-to-one pull-out group. The groups are really small in size anyway, Tony. Our teacher, has about 4 to 6 children for really targeting literacy and phonics skills. There's always 1 or 2 within that little group that still needs a bit more support. So that's where I come in, and I have the pleasure of working with them, one-to-one for 30 minutes. And as I had told you back when we sat on the panel for Sentenced, they'll do almost anything for a Pokemon card,
right?
And you've never seen people more happy to see you, which really is like, just makes your day. And they're really motivated, Tony. These children want to learn. They're intrinsically curious. They love to read. They love books. So it is literally the highlight of my week to be there with them.
Thank you for that sort of personal, look into it, because sometimes we can get lost in the numbers, get lost in the bigness. Sometimes we can get lost in false narratives that kids don't like school, that kids don't want to be there, that it's really pushing a rock up a hill every day, when in reality it's more about opportunity than is it about pushing a rock.
That's right.
And can opportunities be created?
Indeed.
So you started out you referred to illiteracy as a crisis. You used a really strong term, crisis or pandemic or something.
Yes. We have an illiteracy crisis in our country. Full stop.
So I know you travel a lot, and you give a lot of interviews, and again, thank you for your time today. And people, I get this a lot. I was on the phone yesterday with a reporter, and they were like, is it really that bad? Is it really that bad? Are things really getting worse? Or you just kind of, tell me the truth. What are the numbers? Like, what do you say to people when they're like, Mary, is it really that bad? Or should this really be a big focus? Like, what do you say?
Yeah. Tony, the thing that I think sets us apart a little bit is Brooke and I are certainly speaking out and doing interviews. And
Brooke is your co-founder at
yes,
Enriched NYC, and we love Brooke.
yes, who hopefully she'll be on
Yep.
soon. In a few weeks' time. But, we're not only out there raising awareness, trying to raise funds to help children in underserved community, but we are also literally in the classrooms, right? So I shared my experiences yesterday at East Harlem, and then I kind of raced home, got back to my office, and I was on for an hour and a half with our dreamers in Ketchum, Idaho. So, we're really hands-on in classrooms. So we're not only sort of speaking about this, but we're living it. We are meeting the 5th and 6th graders who are so defeated by reading and literacy because they're on a kindergarten, 1st grade reading
Right.
level. And we are seeing this in states all over America: New York, California, Illinois, Idaho, Indiana. I could go on and on. So we are literally sort of living it with them. So yes, it is that bad. And the reason why it needs to be taken very seriously is that a person's involvement in the American criminal justice system directly correlates to how well they can read. Okay, so we have a few blocks away from where I'm sitting in the Bronx, New York, 70% of 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders on
70%.
last year's English language arts exam were not reading on grade level. 70. So those are the numbers, right? You could sort of look at the numbers.
And we're talking grade level. We're not talking like exceptional reading. We're talking meeting the minimum requirement for a 3rd grader.
50th percentile, Tony.
And 70% do not meet it, just
70.
blocks from where you are.
Correct.
And so, one of the things that we do at Teach a Kid to Read is we make films, because we know that so many people don't have time to read a book or to read a report written by the Department of Education or whatever. And so we make films to both speak to the heart and to the mind and try and inspire people. And one of the films that we've made has a little snippet in it where we have each of the last 12 presidents, a clip of them talking about how education is their highest priority. Like every single president saying it, standing at the stage or at the State of the Union, highest priority of my administration, and we just go boom, 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 right down through the last 12. And simultaneously, we show the US ranking in education and literacy based on the developing world, against the developing world, and watching how it goes down to now we are among the lowest developing democratic countries, developed democratic countries of the world. So it's getting worse. It's not getting better, wouldn't you say?
100%. Our scores, have been going down based on the nation's report card, right? It comes out every year at the end of September, beginning of October. For the last 25 years, Tony, we've had scores going down, 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 down. Now, sadly, what I see happening, you touched on presidency and politics, so I'll throw this little tidbit in there.
Okay.
We're starting to see now that the science of reading or teaching phonics, which really is the only thing that works, is now becoming a political issue, right? And you're sort of seeing, people associating red states with being, for phonics and teaching skills, and blue states being for a more whole language approach and not using a phonics-based approach. And again, who suffers, Tony? The children. In all of this debate back and forth, nobody's on the same page, sadly. And it does take strong leadership, Tony, to stand up in your school district and say, listen, guys, we need to get creative. We need to change gears. Our children are not reading. We need to change it up. And we don't have that leadership, Tony, not only sadly on the school-based level, but the district level. And, where is our Secretary of Education here? There's a big problem. Big problem.
Well, so you've been around this issue, and I've been around educators my whole life. I spent much of my life in the classroom, and there's sort of two ways. There's sort of some people go like cynicism and it's just a job and I'm getting through the day and I'm counting my weeks and I can't wait to retire. And they get tired, and for a whole bunch of reasons, some very reasonable reasons, because it can be an exhausting career and so much is asked and they're under resourced. And this is no slam on educators and teachers at all. It's not my heart. But then there's other people who just, the more they get involved in it, the more they seem to care, the more they come alive, the more passionate they become about changing the world. And I see that in you, that you're on that second track. How did that happen? How did you like continue to move into this, like more committed, more inspired,
Mm.
wanting to get, your hands dirty on the issue, as well as, working in the halls of politics and in
Mm.
the big categories of society. How did that happen for you?
It's such a great question, Tony, and you're so right. It's a burnout profession, right? You're exhausted at the end of the day,
Mhm.
literally. And Sentence portrayed so beautifully what a teacher's day is actually like.
Thank you.
You are mother, you are father, you are teacher, you are nutritionist, you're therapist. I mean, the number of hats you have to wear
Yeah.
as a teacher, is unbelievable. And I was, in the classroom, Tony, honestly, only about 5 years before I was sort of plucked and put into an administrative role, which I sort of had no idea what I was doing. But I thought, I am a leader. I went to Jesuit schools my whole life, and I was taught that, in the spirit of St. Ignatius Loyola, you lead, you give back, and you get on with it. You work, you put your head down, you work hard. And I thought I could certainly use that platform to inspire other teachers that, just keep digging in, keep working, keep your eye on the prize. Don't waver, have trust and belief and faith in yourself that you can make a difference in this child's life. So I went from the public school system in East Harlem, Williamsburg, Brooklyn. I mean, great experiences. Like, that's the way to cut your teeth on this job, right? Like, you work with the neediest of communities, and that's how
Right.
you get the tools you need to be successful anywhere. I went from there to Park Avenue, and the inequities I saw overnight
Mm.
just blew my mind. I mean, it was like, whoa, these kids on Park Avenue, literally by the age of 3, are learning all of the letters, all of the sounds the letters make, how to write their name. They're starting to blend words, Tony, by 4 or 5 year old. It was unbelievable. And I wrote a curriculum for that school that was phonics based and hugely successful. So that's where really my love of teaching phonics became so acute. And then seeing the inequities, I said, at some point in my career, I love
Right.
what I'm doing. I'm a school administrator, but there's more for me out there. You have to listen to that little voice in your head that's saying you're doing good things, but there is more. You
Yeah.
always trust your gut.
Yeah.
And the pandemic happened. I met Brooke Uten, my business partner, in the summer of 2020. We knew there was going to be huge COVID learning loss that needed to be remediated. We knew that. Quit my job, Tony. I quit my job. Single mother, no health insurance, no paycheck. I said, I'm done. I am sort of done with this part. This was a wonderful chapter, but I am ready now to sort of spread this message and help others who
Right.
quit my job, but how we started as a COVID sort of remediation literacy company, but what we uncovered, Tony, over the course of the next 3 years was shocking.
Wow. I mean, there's so much in that monologue. I'm going to cut it out and I'm going to like use it separately as another promotional piece because there was so much there. But you started out with this idea that hope and opportunity is so much based on the zip code you were born into. And some kids have so many resources, and some, I mean, there's this delusion that every kid in America has this opportunity to learn, this equal opportunity to learn. And child plus classroom plus time equals literate. And if that formula fails on some level, somehow it's the child's problem, or something. And this idea of how do we get resources to the most needy communities, the under-resourced, I should say, the under-resourced communities, and you would go, I'm going to quit my job because these ideas cannot remain in just these small places, that I really want to take it around the country, is really inspiring.
Thank you, Tony. And I'm going to do one further than resources, right? Because, Tony, there are resources out there. Our education system is well funded. People are not spending these resources wisely. Certainly, there are many communities that are underfunded.
Right.
However, there is a surplus in many communities. Let's talk about the American Rescue Fund dollars that were specifically earmarked for this type of phonics remediation. Millions of dollars, Tony, tens of millions of dollars. Some districts haven't even spent it yet. And if they don't spend it by, I think it's September 30th, which is, almost around the corner, it goes away. And it's so hard. And
Yeah.
I think Michael Capitelli spoke about this, Tony, on our panel.
Right.
Sometimes the federal government makes it so difficult for a school administrator to access those funds, they give up.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to be smarter about these things. But smart is important. But I was an educator for years, and I would tell my students that the job of the head is to justify the decisions the heart has already made. Job of the head is to justify the decisions the heart has already made. And how do we speak to people's hearts? Because once their heart is turned, their head will do the work. Their head will show up and do the research and figure out the whys, and we'll do that. But the head does not go there until the heart has already made the turn. So my question for you, we already talked about that illiteracy and education standards, or education proficiency in America, has been going down. How about the heart of the American people? Do you find that people are starting to care more about this issue? Are people waking up to this being something that they should be involved in? Or do you think people are getting more cynical, more isolated, more tribal, maybe, in their orientation?
Tony, I am the eternal optimist.
Yes, you are.
There is always hope because we have a solution, right? We worked with 20 native Spanish-speaking first graders in Ketchum, Idaho, who were not recognizing the letter A in September, the letter B, the letter C. After 20 weeks of direct phonics instruction, they were all reading on grade level. So there is hope. We have to just keep sending that message that the science of reading is the only way forward. I think if people understand childhood is a magical time, right? Think back to their own childhoods.
Right.
Hopefully they were happy ones and they have good experiences. These children essentially in many ways are, being robbed of a lot of those rights because they don't know how to read. They cannot enjoy a book. It speaks to people's common decency and dignity. And if you can't reach them that way, you can reach people by understanding the illiteracy crisis will affect them financially, right? So if they can't get on board and understand from their heart, maybe, and I'm not against sort of getting people on board however we can, because your taxes will go up. The prison population will go up. If our readers, where are we going to get our workers? Where are our doctors, our lawyers, our essential workers coming from? We have kids right now, and Tony, I'm a realist. I think there's a place for everyone. I don't know if every single scholar is going to go to a 4-year college, and that's okay. However, they may want to do a trade, which I think is a great option.
Yeah.
We need to get you literate to the point where you can read the manual to study your trade. Full stop. And we are not doing that.
Yeah. Name a trade you don't need a driver's license for, and explain to me how you're going to get a driver's license.
Okay.
Well, you can't read a manual, can't do training, can't do continuing ed,
Exactly.
which every plumber has to do continuing ed. They have to stay up on stuff, you know? So
Look at Billy
absolutely.
in your
And
movie.
thank you.
Billy in your movie.
And I love
Couldn't
the
get
fact that
more Billy.
I can spend all day saying we should love kids more. Don't you want to love kids? And I want to get back to that in a second. But quite frankly, love yourself. Like, be selfish about this,
That's right.
because your world is getting worse because of an illiterate, such a large portion of society. 1 in 5 American adults don't read well enough in order to get a well-paying job, according to the Department of Labor. 1 in 5 American adults. We have a labor crisis. We have a trade crisis in this country. But every dropout, every high school dropout costs the American taxpayers
Right.
hundreds of thousands of dollars
There it
each.
is.
Each dropout, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you want to change the government budget? Well, one way to do that would be for us to help kids get through high school and have the basic skills. I mean, be selfish about it. You want safer communities?
That's right.
You want more integrated cities?
Yep.
Stop complaining about the homelessness crisis. Stop complaining about the prison crisis. Why don't we go back to the grassroots, the headwaters of these problems,
Amen, brother.
and work at the headwaters?
This is
We,
it.
we talk about preventative medicine. Why don't we talk about preventative society and the way that and where we put our resources and how we think? Okay.
The only way forward, Tony.
So speak to this, because again, you're in this so much deeper than I am. I just don't understand in my own heart, as well as in the world, this tendency to go, well, as long as my kids are taken care of, I just don't care about everyone else. My kids, my nephews and nieces, my tribe, the kids at my church, the kids, wherever, however I define my tribe, as long as they're taken care of, I kind of don't care.
Mm.
And there's sort of this, if you don't look like me or vote like me or read like me, then, or spend like me, have income like me, I just, if I were to be truly honest, I just kind of don't care.
Mm.
And why do you think that is? And is there anything we can do about that? Do you just have any thoughts? I know it's a big question.
The incredibly sort of insular way of looking at life, as we know it. Certainly if you're saying, I'm a mom, right? I
Mhm.
have an 18-year-old daughter who I couldn't love more, right? But I
Who's
am.
doing great, by the way. I've heard rumors that she's doing great.
She
Keep
is,
going.
and she's an inspiration to me in many ways, a diverse learning style. And she threw me for a loop, but she inspired me to really open this literacy company. And it sort of became this, but I digress.
Wow.
So she, I can certainly say, well, I was able to get her what she needed, the remediation, the help to become a wonderful reader, be at her, top choice school for college, etc. There are many families who are not in that position. I can certainly say that she will be, and my grandchildren will be affected by everyone they come in contact with in this country, should they choose to remain living here. It's a really sort of silly way to look at the world because we really are all connected.
Mm.
I mean, you pick up a phone and, I don't know, you make a phone call to the cable company and you have the cable guy come to do your work, and you need him to know what he's doing. That directly affects every single person.
Mhm.
So I think it's a tricky way to look at the world. And I also think people are getting a little bit away from living their real purpose in the world.
Mm.
This might be a topic for another podcast, but I think the happier and more fulfilled an individual feels in their own life, your cup is full. And that way you can give to others, and in whatever role you choose to give. I happen to choose this space, right? Because
Right.
I don't know. I wouldn't even say I'm so great at it. I just am so, I just think books and learning to read changes a child's life, which then makes the country better. So it's really, twofold, not looking at it holistically, but also sort of selfishly, to your point and your word, living your own purpose so you can then help others in whatever field that is.
So good. The poet wrote 3,000 years ago, "My cup runneth over." And maybe that is part of it, is that
Yes.
there really is there's in the midst of a crisis of illiteracy, there's also a crisis of meaning. There's a
Mhm.
crisis of satisfaction. And when our tanks are empty,
Absolutely.
when we're not living an inspired life amongst just within ourselves, and really tapping into our own creativity, our own dreams, our own hopes for the future,
Right.
that where does that extra energy come from to love the stranger, the forgotten, the under-resourced,
Right.
the immigrant? So that's
And
so good.
we're not getting this message out enough, Tony. Like it does in many ways come from the home. We were taught to be kind,
Right.
right? That kindness was emphasized in my home as a child. I was taught, to whom much is given, much is expected. And sadly, there are sort of more of a me, message in many homes now. And I think that's something where if we begin to change that language,
Right.
it becomes, that will have a positive impact on our entire community, our entire country.
Tell me what Enriched is doing. Give me a sense of the breadth
Oh,
of Enriched NYC.
Tony, there's so much to say, but I'll try to be as succinct as possible, as I know that's important on these podcasts. So obviously we are working with our dreamers through the I Have a Dream Foundation.
Great.
They have 14 affiliates all over the country, and we are in 5 of them, which is hugely exciting. And we're working on summer programming for them right now, because the summer slide is very real. And for children in underserved communities, under-resourced communities, it's even realer. Sadly, Tony, last summer we had some dreamers who were, not able to sort of get into their local public school, reading summer program. And they literally were home day in and day out. There's not money for camp. So we're raising awareness. We're trying to raise funds for these children through our own non-for-profit, which is called OnWords.
Right.
So the dreamer work is great. We're in talks with, some of these sort of school districts all around the country to make professional development for their teachers more cost effective. We believe in the science of reading, and we believe in phonics. Tony, to train teachers, some of these big organizations out there, and listen, I was trained by one of them. Can I say the name? I don't know. I mean, they're great.
Don't.
Okay. I was trained by one of them. They're wonderful. I called them to sort of price out a training so we could get more people trained in phonics and helping more kids. Tony, they wanted something like $100K to train 20 people, or it was just, and school districts around the country cannot afford this. Brooke
Yeah.
and I have sort of created our own version of a really effective phonics curriculum that we're using with our dreamers and making gains, and we're starting to teach it. So we're going to Detroit in July to teach, some of the teachers there how to teach their children how to read. Full stop. Word attack strategies, reading comprehension
So
strategies,
great.
writing skills, 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 skills. So we'll be doing that a lot of the summer, raising money and awareness for our dreamers, continuing to talk to wonderful people like yourself, Jeff Martin. The people at Fox News have been very good to us, Tony. Again, we're not politicizing this, but they are the only ones really picking up on this message until finally last Sunday. I don't know if you saw it. Jeff sent me the article, but I had seen it. The New York Times. So we've been screaming for 3 years, the
Nice.
science of reading, phonics, only way forward. Finally, the Times last Sunday, 3 years later, came out with their big article. We must follow the science of reading to teach children how to read. It is like, all right, thanks guys for getting on the best. So we're going to continue to sort of spread this message and getting into as many small, forgotten communities like Bowman, South Carolina, a little town of 800 people in the back country. 23% of children are reading on grade level. Trying to help those students, children, raising money, raising awareness for them. So we won't stop. We're not stopping. We're just begun, Tony. We've only just begun, as the carpenter said.
No, we've only just begun. So you're an example of somebody whose cup is overflowing. You and Brooke and Enriched NYC and OnWords are using your intellect, your influence, your connectivity to raise funds, to build training resources, to really touch communities all across the country, which is fantastic. You can find Mary at EnrichedNYC.com, and I'm sure other places. Is there any other ways that people can follow you, Mary?
Yeah, we're on the gram. We're on Instagram at Enriched NYC. We're on Facebook at
Great.
Enriched NYC. You can email me if you have any specific questions about your own child. Love answering any of these questions. I could tell you from personal and professional experience. Mary at EnrichedNYC.com. Shoot me an email. Happy to answer your questions, because sometimes parents just don't know. Tony, they have no clue if their child's not reading on grade level.
What's your favorite children's book?
Oh my gosh, Tony, there's so many. I mean, I love Rainbow Fish, about that fish with the gorgeous, he had these beautiful fins and shiny and sparkly, and all of the other fish in the sea and the octopus. And they were asking him for one because they were so gorgeous. And he was like, ooh, no, like why would I give you my gorgeous, fabulous fins? And he started to realize that the other fish were kind of like, he's beautiful, but he's not really that nice. We're not really going to hang out with him or play with him. And what happened? One day he gave one fin away, and the feeling he got from giving far surpassed anything he ever felt when he looked in the mirror.
There's a little parable there.
A
little parable.
Messages everywhere, Tony.
There you go. Everybody, that is Mary Cantwell. She is with Enriched NYC, EnrichedNYC.com. Mary, thank you so much for your time. You've been a delight, as I knew you would be. This is Teach a Kid to Read, and we don't believe that there are illiterate children. We just believe there are children who haven't had the chance to learn to read yet. So let's get out there and make a difference like Mary is.
Thank you, Tony.
Teach a child to read. Give a child a chance. It's as simple as that.